Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolutely coolest, most fascinating character journeys in Dungeons & Dragons Online, the Warlock. This isn't your standard pick a class and swing a sword kind of deal. No, this is a literal hero's journey, but one that is paved with dark, otherworldly bargains. You're not just memorizing spells from a dusty book here. You are actively forging an alliance with an entity of unimaginable power. So, what would you trade for ultimate cosmic power? Okay, let's dive into this, because that is the fundamental question every single warlock has to answer. See, unlike wizards who just, hit the books, or clerics who pray to benevolent gods, as a warlock, you're trading a piece of your autonomy, maybe even a piece of your soul, to a powerful patron. And in exchange, you get raw, unbridled magical force. The stakes are incredibly high, literally right from the very first click on the character creation screen. Here's how we're going to break it all down today. First, mastering the Eldritch Blast. Then, choosing your pact alliance, followed by elemental damage and abilities. After that, we'll look at the Warlock enhancement trees. And finally, we'll wrap up with the Acolyte archetype.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1, mastering the Eldritch Blast.
Now, before you go off shaking hands with demons or Fey Lords, we really need to understand the primary weapon you're getting out of this whole deal. Officially, the source material defines the Eldritch Blast as a ranged magical bolt of energy dealing force damage. But practically speaking, you just need to think of this as your auto-attack replacement. It's a stance you just toggle on. You aren't micromanaging cooldowns or draining all your spell points to use this thing. It's basically your infinite, magical, heavy artillery, and it forms the absolute core of your entire combat loop. And to put that power into perspective, consider this massive number, 170%. The base Eldritch Blast scales with 170% of your spell power, which is, frankly, incredibly high for a basic attack. What this means for you is that as you gear up and grab buffs that boost your spell power, your standard, absolutely free auto attack is going to hit like an absolute freight train. Plus, that baseline power grows completely naturally as you level up. You start off at level 1, dealing a pretty humble 1d8 of force damage. But as you hit these major milestones, levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and then finally 20, the blast naturally upgrades itself. It eventually caps out at a base of 6d8 force damage at level 20. Basically, this represents your character slowly unlocking those much deeper reserves of power granted by their patron. Moving right along to part 2, choosing your Pact's alliance. Because honestly, that Eldritch Blast we just talked about, it's really just a blank canvas until your patron paints it with their own specific brand of chaos. The official text is pretty clear here. Every warlock chooses one of the 6 pacts at character creation. The choice is permanent. Just let that sink in for a second. You literally cannot change your mind later without doing a full reincarnation. This single choice dictates everything. Your character's moral alignment, your elemental damage type, and those unique spells that get permanently etched into your spellbook. So, when it comes to the pacts, the crucial thing to understand is how these entities restrict exactly who you can be. Say you make a deal with the Fiend or the Abyss, well, you can't be of good alignment anymore. If you start whispering to a Great Old One, you cannot be lawful. In exchange for your strict compliance, they infuse your blasts with elements. You get fire for the Fiend, acid for the Great Old One, sonic for the Fae, electric for Celestial, negative for the Abyss, and cold for Carcery Storm. Essentially, you're trading your moral flexibility for highly specialized elemental destruction. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Elemental Damage and Abilities. So, how does all this elemental damage actually manifest when you're playing? Well, as you progress, your patron rewards your loyalty on a very strict timeline. Right at level 2, you get your first taste of extra packed elemental damage. It's an extra 1d6 that eventually stacks all the way up to a massive 10d6 by level 20. Then at level 4, you get a unique pact save bonus, so maybe some extra reflex or fortitude depending on who you signed with. And then at level 6 and 15, things get really wild as you unlock your special abilities. And the flavor of those level 6 and 15 unlocks is just incredibly distinct. For example, if you chose the Fiend, at level 6 you get Dark One's Luck for better overall saves, but at level 15, you literally get a spell called Hurl Through Hell, which is a terrifying save or die mechanic. If you chose the Fae, you can daze monsters with Dark Delirium. Or, if you pledge to the Abyss, hitting level 15 lets you toggle channel the Abyss to literally transform into an undead form, gaining a massive negative healing amplification. Your patron doesn't just give you stats, they fundamentally dictate your tactical toolkit. Let's pivot over to Section 4, Warlock Enhancement Trees. Beyond your base class features, as you level up, you earn 80 action points to spend across different enhancement trees to truly refine your specific playstyle. and the game gives you some incredibly distinct paths. On one hand, you've got the Enlightened Spirit. This tree basically turns you into a defensive, close-quarters brawler. It actually changes your blast into a pulsing eldritch aura that hits everything around you, while giving you medium armor proficiency and a ton of durability. Now, contrast that entirely with the Soul Eater tree. That one is completely focused on ranged, chaotic destruction. You're applying these devastating damage over time debuffs like Consume and Stricken, literally eating your enemy's life force to boost your own speed and power.
And then there's the third tree, the Tainted Scholar. This one revolves around a really unique mechanic called Depravity. As you damage enemies, you build up Depravity charges. Then you spend those charges to unleash these massive crowd control spells, doing things like stunning or confusing entire groups of foes. This tree is also super important because it lets you toggle Utter Dark Blast. That shifts your base force damage completely over to evil damage, which is a real game changer because it perfectly bypasses so many traditional enemy defenses.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the Acolyte Archetype. Now, just when you think you figured out the rules of the Warlock class, DDO introduces an archetype that totally subverts them, the Acolyte of the Skin. This path just throws standard progression completely out the window. First off, your choice of patron? Gone. You are fully locked into the true patron fiend, and you absolutely must be non-good. As a trade-off, you actually get no auto-granted pact spells. Instead, your usual level 6 ability becomes Fiend Skin, giving you massive fire resistance. But the biggest deal here is that your Eldritch Blast progression isn't automatic anymore. It's feat-based. You have to actively select feats like Lesser, Greater, and Ultimate Pact Attunement as you level up to push your blast and pact dice higher. It's a really brilliant twist if you're looking for an advanced playstyle. So we return right back to where we started. Your weapon is the Eldritch Blast, sure, but its shape, its element, and the literal rules of your existence are entirely bound by the patron you choose to serve. Knowing the mechanics, the strict restrictions, and the immense power waiting for you in these enhancement trees, which otherworldly alliance will you forge? The choice is entirely yours. But remember, it's for sure permanent. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.